Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome you to the Futurists Symposium, the future of technology, the arts, and design, and welcome to Imagine RIT, our Creativity and Innovation Festival. I'm Dave Munson, president of the university, in case you don't know me. We begin today's ceremony by acknowledging that the land on which RIT sits is the traditional territory of the Onondaga. These are the people of the Great Hill. In English, they are known as the Seneca people, the keeper of the western door. Together with the Mohawk, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, and Tuscarora, the Seneca make up the sovereign Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Before we get started with the symposium, I want to thank all of you for attending today's festival. We're excited to be back in person for the first time since 2019. Woo-hoo! This is going to be great. I was just over at the Gordon Field House, and it's starting to fill up, and there are amazing things over there, but there are amazing things in almost every major building on campus. And so after the symposium, you'll have a lot to see. Today, we're featuring 272 exhibits, and I believe about 150 of those are brand new. I think you'll be blown away by all the hard work put in by our enterprising students, our faculty and staff, and after the symposium, again, invite you to tour around the entire campus. I think you're going to be discovering that RIT Tigers are shaping the future, improving the world, and doing that through creativity and innovation, and furthermore, doing that at the intersection of technology, the arts, and design. Technology is in the name of our institution, but we're also, as you all know, very strong in the arts and design, and we bridge everything from one side to the other. The festival's mission is to inspire the next generation of problem solvers by connecting young people to the wonders of science, technology, engineering, math, the arts, and design. And yes, we also have business, health sciences, and the liberal arts. We put a high value on bringing goodness to the world. That's what this place is about. And you will be hearing directly from our panelists momentarily. More on that. First, let me take a moment to introduce our interpreters. We have Hannah Cameron and Kirsten Borkowski, so we thank them. Appreciate it. And let me also thank our sponsors for this event, WXXI, City Newspaper, and Magic Spell Studios. So profound thanks to them. At RIT, we are always on to the next big thing. Before we get started talking about the future, though, I want to thank our three leading innovators and futurists for joining us today. They're sitting here in the front row. They include our best and brightest alumni. And in order of presentations, let's welcome the following. First, Erin Gordon, class of 2013. Erin earned a bachelor's in fine arts in film and animation from our College of Art and Design. He is the founder and CEO of Optic Sky Productions, and you will have seen many of his commercials and other work on your television. Franklyn Athias is class of 1985. Franklyn graduated with a degree in computer science in what is now known as the Golisano College of Computing and Information Sciences. He is the Chief Technology Officer and Senior Vice President for Xfinity Mobile Retail Convergence, or XMRC. So welcome, Franklyn. And then our third panelist is Erin Sarofsky. Erin earned 2 degrees from RIT, both from our College of Art and Design, first in 1998, a BFA in graphic design, and then in 2000, an MFA for computer graphics design. Today, she is the executive creative director and the owner of Sarofsky Corporation, and you'll get to find out a little bit about what she does. You have seen a whole lot of her work, but you may not know that. You'll hear more on the impressive backgrounds of these individuals in a few moments. Let me now introduce our esteemed moderator. Our moderator today is Evan Dawson. Evan joined WXXI Radio, our local PBS station, in 2014. He is host of Connections, the weekday NPR program that focuses on all the major issues of the day for Greater Rochester and the Finger Lakes region. Prior to WXXI, Evan worked at 13 Wham Television, where he served as morning news anchor and reporter. Evan is also the author of Summer in a Glass, The Coming Age of Winemaking in the Finger Lakes. That sounds good. And he is the managing editor and Finger Lakes editor for the New York Cork Report, a website that offers independent news, reviews, and commentary from and about the New York wine industry. He has written freelance articles on topics including politics, travel, and Major League Baseball. And according to his bio on Twitter, he is a wiffle ball pitching machine. We want to find out more about that, Evan. So sincerely thank you for being with us today, Evan. And before I turn it over to Evan, I have just one big question for the audience. Are you ready to experience the future? Let's do it. Evan?
Cheers. Thanks very much, President Munson. In the last week of 2014, the first year that I hosted my radio show on the local NPR stations, we asked a question. What would the world look like in 2040, roughly 25 years in the future, based on the expertise of those that we invited? And no surprise, a good number of our guests came from RIT. Think about what 2040 is. It's not that far away, but it was a generation away at the time. And when we think about technology, the arts, design, it's hard to think of anything that's changing more. When I was a journalism student in the 1990s at Ohio University, I was told the most important thing that I could learn was Quark and PowerPoint. This was just before really the internet kind of took over, and I got a great education. I'm not sure it was as forward-thinking as it could have been, but it's hard to think about the future in a very effective way. And one of the reasons I admire RIT is the ability to train and educate students to immediately be impactful in the world now, as students, as graduates, but also to have the kind of training and education that allows students to enter this workforce and for the entirety of their careers, shape it and change it. Be forward-thinking, not be caught off guard. Be the change makers. And that's who you're going to meet today. It is really exciting to think about that. In terms of format, each panelist will have a few minutes to present on their topic of expertise in the realm of technology, the arts, and design. And after all the presentations are complete, I'll have a few questions. I think it'll be a nice conversation, but we want to hear from you as well. We've got microphones. This is really your show as well. We're going to start with Erin Gordon. Erin's a serial entrepreneur, executive producer and CEO of Optic Sky, an advertising and digital experience production company that he founded in 2014. Optic Sky has grown to offer television commercial production, social video, animation, AR, VR, virtual production, and interactive experiences for clients, including Google, Zillow, Amazon, Wegmans, Accenture, Brooks, and Bausch & Lomb, among others. Gordon was a finalist for Rochester Business Person of the Year in 2020 for his resilience and leadership during the pandemic. As a jazz drummer, he finds rhythm in all things and bases both his business and creative ethos on syncopated beats and flow. Let's welcome Erin.
Well, that's the whole presentation. Well, thank you for that very kind intro. I want to try to, match that. We can start by who this guy. He pretty much got summed up just now. I think we're all going to talk about companies a little bit here. I wanted to take maybe a quick second to say, obviously we're at RIT, and I think it's really necessary for me to say at least, RIT was a huge part of my career path so far in my journey. And I think there's a few things that play into that that kind of led RIT to hone that in. Nerdiness, flow, and rhythm is probably the three that I would start with, right? So one, I'm a nerd, and I love that term. I don't hate it. I absolutely love it. And hopefully everyone else here finds themselves in similar labels. I think in this day and age, when we're talking about future forward, everything is tech. We speak as if tech is still a sector, but everything is tech. Everyone's using tech. Everyone needs tech. And I think the kind of cool thing about nerdiness, in my opinion, is that look no further than the sci-fi genre. And when you are a creative nerd, you can totally predict what the future is going to look like in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, as Star Trek did with the cell phone, as did plenty of other shows show us of where we're going with space travel. I think look no further in terms of why it has a benefit to everyone and why I think it should be perfectly embraced. I always talk about flow because I'm a runner as well, and I ran track here at RIT. And it was actually my coach here at RIT, who at the time, super old school mentality, and I loved it in terms of how he coached. There was very little empathy for hungover excuses. if you will. But I always talk about running in the sense of pacing. So I think what's really, really cool is that you can really get a lot out of understanding how to control your breathing, how to pay attention to your whole body in terms of how you're running. It's not like you're trying to run so you can kick a soccer ball. You're just running. So you're against yourself. And there's something that RIT really instilled in terms of that, in terms of coaching, that plays into my life story later too. And then the last, of course, you mentioned as a jazz drummer, is rhythm. I talk a lot in terms of culture and leadership about syncopation. At the end of the day, when you're a leader, you're orchestrating a ton of different things going on at once, a ton of different people working at once. And the thing I love about jazz is that you have to teach your limbs to independently play a ton of different rhythms and sound good to most people. But the beauty there is that you really learn how one thing could be doing something completely different, something else, and then it can come together to make something really, really beautiful. And I think that form of syncopation is really important. And so, that's just a little bit about me. And I think, to wrap that part up, I went to RIT, and as you said, I was here for 4 years, got my bachelor's. And I think all these three things, the time in my life, were separate. And I think what really brought it together was actually my experience here when I was surrounded by a lot of other people that were a lot like me, which is really cool. And I remember the first day of RIT, the president at the time said, you have everything you need here. Whether you choose to use it or not is up to you. But you have absolutely everything you need. And I think a lot of universities try to tout that. I think RIT is one of the few that can actually, I think, tout that properly because you actually have a collaborative ability here that's unbelievable. So I graduated, did my thing, no more hungover excuses. And then in 2014, I founded Optic Sky Productions. And to give you kind of the brief rundown of what we are, I know I gave a brief intro. We're an advertising and digital experience production company. We mostly play in the commercial realm and branded content realm. I like to joke that I have 1 billion bosses because even though I'm my own boss, we're always answering to a client. And I love that, actually. It's really, really fun. I think for us, I'm surrounded by a wonderful team that really enjoys actually working with clients. And as you said, we've worked with a lot of really great people. We've been able to partner with a lot of really cool people over time. And then we've gotten to be in a bunch of cool places. But I'm going to skip over that because we have more fun stuff to talk about. So we do a lot. We do a lot of different things. And I think you're going to hear from Erin, too, that her company does a lot of overlap with what we do. And she crushes it. So I'm just putting that out there to tee that up. So we have a small in-house team, right? We have a small in-house team, and we have a huge freelance network. So at any given time, we're around 15 people now. We've grown actually since this slide. But at any given time for productions, we typically have anywhere from 50 to 200 freelancers working with us at a time. And it's really fun, and it's crazy, and it's really fun. I'm trying to skip through these because I want to get to the fun part. We have a freelance director roster that goes around the globe. And it's really interesting the way we work at. A lot of companies like to rep directors exclusively. We decided not to do that. That way we can work with more people. So what it allows us to do, kind of in the theme of today, is we actually have a lot of different directors that have different specialties in the roster. So some people are actually much more technically inclined. They can actually direct immersive experience type of content. Other people really can only direct, say, like a really beautiful commercial, or maybe they're a comedian, maybe they're, we have the whole range. But I would say the interesting thing about the pandemic is it opened up the eyes in our industry, in my opinion, of why looking into the future is really, really important. I think the old model of the rep system is slowly dying out. And so we actually are using technology to our advantage to keep up with all of these directors and manage them, which is, we're managing, I think, 87 directors right now that are freelance and non-exclusive, and we're able to do that through tech, a theme of today. So some of you, I'll skip ahead because I want to talk about the tech part, but some of you might know us because we do a lot of Wegmans work. And I think regionally, probably a lot of people are familiar with this. This is a really fun example of what you think we do most of the time. That was in 2019. It was shot right here in Magic at the stage, and we got to literally recreate the moon in Magic. And I'll show you a quick spot of that. and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap.
Zork?
Yeah, man, that's me.
Got your meal here.
Ah, sweet. My veggie crust pizza. Thanks.
Hey, do you mind if I put a flag up over there? It's not really a big deal, but like, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, man, go for it.
Thanks.
So that one was really interesting. I think the stage thought I think they're still picking up some of the material from the moon that's just like still in the ceiling. But for a long time, I think until about 2019, we were known for production, and we got to do a lot of really fun stuff. But around 2019, looking at the future, past even what I've already said, the big theme for us was production itself is changing. And there was a need to kind of look outside of production, I think, to complement the skills that we were using now in production. And that's when we actually started a digital experience division. And it leads to some of the kind of cool innovations that we're doing today. So to bring you through that, we still don't take ourselves seriously, by the way. If you thought this was going to get any more serious, it totally doesn't. Now we do a lot of other stuff. So we actually do augmented reality, we do virtual reality, and we do immersive web experiences, and I'm actually categorizing separately virtual production. For those of you that don't know what augmented reality is, really quickly, it is putting a layer in front of your reality, whereas virtual reality is fully immersed and you're actually in a different world. And mixed reality kind of gets a little more complicated. It's using depth perception to actually put things in front of and in back of items in your reality. And I will be happily talking later today about where I think augmented reality is going, because it's going to scare you all. So we do a lot of different stuff. At the base level, really basic level, we do social AR content. A lot of people are underestimating, I think, right now where social augmented reality is going. One, because it's your phone, and two, because the package size is like 2 megabytes for a filter right now, right? But as 5G's really coming our way and improvements are happening there, that's all going to get more complex, and we're actually starting to see a lot more complex interactions able to happen on social AR. And so we do a lot on Spark AR, Instagram, and Facebook. And then recently we became partners with Snapchat. So Snapchat is a lot more far along in what they can do in terms of filters, but also they have their augmented reality glasses that they're trying to develop. So we're in pre-dev with them, testing it out. There's several hundred companies probably around the globe that are doing the same. And they are getting there for sure. And I think the big note there is that a lot of people talk about the fact that you have to use a phone right now to use augmented reality most of your day, but people are really accustomed to using the phone. Once it turns to glasses that you're willing to wear every day, there's going to be some really interesting implications that we can talk about later. I will skip over virtual reality only a little bit because it's going to tie into virtual production, and I'm going to skip over immersive web experiences because these are really cool, but not, I think, the most relevant thing for today. And I'm going to go to virtual production, actually. This is something that Magic has here. There's actually a wall here, and it's a technology, for those of you who don't know, that uses real-time game engine, a real-time game engine that is the same as for developing for video games. And you're actually creating environments that you then put up on LED walls, or you can even do projection. And it allows you to kind of replace using a green screen. It allows you to actually film real-time people in the backgrounds you want them to film. And you basically, instead of doing everything in post, you do it in pre-production and then practically on set. And so we had, this is a little behind the scenes thing, but we had the chance probably about, oh gosh, it's a couple years ago now, or more than a year, I should say, where we did a first test here at RIT, and we were testing out, this is all real time, and the results are this. So I know these are very heavily compressed, but we were able to film that here at RIT and test out a mini volume here to test out technology. And it has really come full circle in terms of a journey, because I actually just got back this morning from LA. And Excuse me. And what we're actually doing now is we joined a conglomerate that is going to be building volumes, hopefully all around the country, starting with LA, and starting to do a full service offering for really big virtual production needs. So what you can see here is this is actually a much larger volume. It's all LED walls, and you see the ceiling as well. The next volume that we're actually going back out there to build in Las Palmas is going to be about twice the size. And that's Emily from our team and Tim right behind her. And there's a demo happening up in the top right that was actually just 2 days ago. And we can essentially pull up any map we want, any environment that we want. In real time, these guys are, essentially it's prepped so that a crew can walk right in. And the way it works is that the camera is synced up to a digital camera in the engine. So, there's a natural parallax, a natural way that things move when you change your perspective. And so the way it'll work in this volume is that camera you see there that's wired in. When that moves around, the background, if someone's in front of it, will look, it looks hyper real, that it parallaxes with the background and their movement. So the depth actually feels right, rather than a green screen where a lot of times you're comping in a background, but you have to match it perfectly or else you can tell something's off. So real time, you're actually able to use this technology to film what looks extremely real on set, even though you're just on a stage. A lot of you guys might be familiar with like The Mandalorian. They were, I think, the case study where everyone kind of heard about this getting pioneered. It's getting a lot more democratized in how it's going, and there's been a ton of improvements since then. And so this project is actually going around the country to build some of these out is kind of part of how that's gotten democratized to the point where now these volumes, they still are very costly, but they can be put up and they can be used for television content, commercial content, and feature films. So that's all I got, and I want to give this back to you.
That was awesome. This is amazing. People are so much smarter. Everybody in this room is amazing. Our next presenter here is Franklyn Athias. Throughout his more than 25-year career with Comcast, hold on a second. Let me back up a little bit. I will say, terrific job, Erin. And we will, I promise, have plenty of time for questions, because I now have a lot more questions than I thought I was going to. So I want to let the audience know, all three guests will answer my questions and yours coming up here. So thank you for that. That's a great example of entrepreneurship and making an impact on the world. Franklyn Athias is here. Franklyn is CTO and Senior Vice President for Xfinity Mobile Retail Convergence, where he drives the division's overall technology strategy and helps to ensure alignment of the architecture and product portfolio for the next era of wireless communication. Throughout his more than 25-year career with Comcast, he has spearheaded several IP architecture programs and initiatives for cable modem broadband services. Athias is also an advocate for STEM and STEAM as he supports various innovative initiatives throughout Philadelphia, including Dance Logic, a program he spearheaded that aims to teach young girls to program while integrating the art of dance. Franklyn and his family bleed RIT orange. His sons Jared and Andrew are also proud RIT alums. Franklyn, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. To be sandwiched between the two Erins is going to be interesting for me, because I'm the geek, and I'm a straight up pure geek, and you're going to see that by my background. Oh, there we go. What I'm going to do is embarrass some of my friends that are here a little bit, okay, because I brought my own cheering section if some people didn't recognize the second row. All right, but the foundation of who I am and what I am is because of the friends and family that you see up here. All right. I came to RIT pretty naive, thought I knew everything, but I didn't know everything. And the foundation of people that some of them you see up here is the ones who formed who I am today. All right. And I wanted to make sure we recognize that and everybody recognize that. And today is my 29th anniversary, so you're very lucky that you have me here all together. Right, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, to be honest with you. But I did want to make sure you recognize that it's a family atmosphere. My two sons, as we said, were graduates at RIT. I don't think they had any other place to go because everything was always RIT for them. Okay. But it wouldn't be me if I didn't tell you who I am. All right, and I'm Jamaican. Okay, I came here when I was 8 years old. All right, and my parents came with not knowing what we were going to do and what we were going to be. But the foundation of who I am is always going to be some part Jamaican, but a lot of Brooklyn. Okay. Okay. All right. I think I left Brooklyn when I was 17, and to this day, if somebody asks me where I'm from, it's Brooklyn. Now, I've been living in Philadelphia since 1988. Okay. Okay. All right. But Brooklyn is always home, and Brooklyn will always be home. But this is the start of what I would call the drive in me that gave me the ability to do some of these projects that I did for Comcast for the last 27 years. If it wasn't for this foundation and this natural curiosity, all right, I wouldn't have gotten those jobs that I've gotten at Comcast to be able to do the different projects that I'm going to introduce you to. Now, part of that, I also have to go back to my high school days, because it was there that the original foundation of technology was introduced to me. I was lucky in 1977 to be introduced to this thing called computer math. And I was so lucky that I found someone who was passionate about teaching coding to a bunch of kids that had nothing to do with technology at the time, had no idea what they were going to be when they grow up. All right. And that introduction stuck with me to this day, and you'll see some of that when I talk about dance logic, because someone came to me and said, I'm going to teach you and 40 other kids from the neighborhood how to code. It taught us how to code at the time, okay, we didn't have these fancy computers that you guys call laptops and phones, okay? So he got us calculators, and we learned how to program calculators. Once we got that logic in our heads, he then taught us how to write BASIC. And then he taught us, COBOL, okay? And the language that stuck with me the most is Fortran 77, okay? So once those things were ingrained in me, I was a technologist from right then and there. And computer science became the thing that I knew I wanted to do. What exactly I was going to do with it, I did not know, but those teachings that I got at that young age introduced me to the thing called technology and made me a geek at that point. Then I was lucky to meet someone from Rochester Institute of Technology. I came to this program, and the gentleman was saying, RIT is this, RIT is that. And I was already sold before you came there about RIT, because I was lucky to do some research, and RIT kept showing up for me. But he sold me on coming to RIT. Never visited the campus, okay? Because if I'd have came here in the wintertime, it probably would have been a different story. Okay, okay, all right. But I was sold, okay? And coming to RIT, I'm going to tell you, is probably the second best thing that ever happened to me besides coming to this country, all right? So the RIT years. I was once again lucky to get invited to come to RIT. The Higher Education Opportunity Program was what brought me here. Okay, and that introduction and that day that I came here that summer is the foundation of the people I call brothers and sisters to this day. We all met somewhere or another through that program, and they cuddled me, they hugged me, they made sure we stayed together, and made sure we learned together, and they made sure we graduated together. Okay, but RIT made some changes from my freshman year to my sophomore year. When we got here the freshman year, it was almost like high school because everything was punch cards, okay? We had the Sigma 7 computer, right? And we started coding in this language called Pascal, which, was easy for me because of all the stuff I learned in high school, right? But sophomore year, RIT did this major change. everything got changed to this operating system called Unix. Okay, everything changed to a new programming language called C. And I'm telling you, that change dramatically changed everything for me in my life, because to this day I still use Unix. Okay, to this day, the C language foundation allowed me to learn other languages and to teach other languages. But that dynamic shift that RIT made, okay, and this was 1981, right, is still being used to this day. Okay, and that's how forward-looking RIT was at the time. Okay, and RIT still is, from what I've been seeing walking around the campus. Okay, but this is what kickstarted my career. Okay, the things that I did here. Okay, the lessons that I learned. All right, I also have here NTID. Okay, because my sophomore year, I met two people who taught me how to work. Okay, I got this job at the National Technical Institute for the Deaf to write Fortran 77 code. Those 3 years at high school writing code in Fortran 77, I was quickly able to get this job at NTID, which gave us a lot of pocket money to do things on campus, and also obviously to help pay for this beautiful school. But it taught me how to work. Okay, it also enabled me to get my other co-op jobs, because once I got this experience, the other experiences I got afterwards was just an open door, because I had work experience. I learned how to work. I learned how to create. I learned how to listen. I also learned how to lead. And the foundation that this structure gave me for those 5 years that I was at RIT, right, enabled me to get every other job afterwards. Okay? I was never really turned down for a job after this foundation. So I'm going to skip over, though, and jump right to Comcast. All right, because I was lucky to join Comcast in 1995 after a few different opportunities I had after graduation. But the incubation, the lessons learned, the ability for me to be in a company that allowed me to get funding, okay, and I still had business cases to do. I still had everything that any other startup had to do, but I had, one or two people I had to convince about what I had to do and what I need to get done. But every project that I've been on at Comcast from 1995 until now, every 5 years was a startup business for me, right? The first startup business that I was hired into was this thing that called the broadband cable modem. When we started working on broadband cable in 1995, it was a little project. We had 50 users. Many of you probably remember AOL. You probably remember Prodigy. Okay. Many of you probably remember a dial-up modem. Okay. My job at the time was to be able to develop this new technology called broadband to replace dial-up modems, to make AOL go faster, make Prodigy go faster. Okay. And we were able to accomplish that. And that set us up and set me up career-wise to keep going. So once we did the broadband service and we launched that, we had to start from scratch. I had to build a team. Okay, I was always in a chief technology role in every one of these opportunities that I got within Comcast. And once again that I was able to launch this broadband business, we then went to the next business. During that period, we looked at things like voice. Back then, we had this little thing called a public switch telephone network. Everybody forgot about that now because we all walk around with a phone in our pocket called a cell phone. But we quickly pivoted to go launch this business to replace the public switch telephone. And once again, they pulled me in to say, go help us do that. Okay, I became the CTO of that group, and we figured out how to do voice on top of this thing called broadband. All right, and once again, we quickly launched this other billion-dollar business. And then they turned around and said, okay, we did that one. Now what's next? We started playing with Wi-Fi. Okay, Wi-Fi back then was a little thing called 802.11b, for many of you remember those little names. And I started working with Lucent on this project. And Lucent was one of the first companies that was giving us these little routers to be able to plug into our service. And we quickly adopted it. And then we quickly tried to change it to say how else we can make it grow. Now, we didn't know what the next step after that was, but we knew that the path we were going on was to embrace broadband and push broadband out to different ways. All right. And Wi-Fi enabled us to get more flexibility. So we quickly adopted Wi-Fi to be part of the in-home service. Okay, but we also figured out, let's do Wi-Fi outside of the home. So they put me in charge of putting Wi-Fi outside of the home and inside the home. And we built this network of now 20 million Wi-Fi hotspots between the house and outside the house. Still, once again, not knowing what the next step was going to be, but we knew that we were on a path of pushing more broadband. Okay? About 7 years ago, they pulled me aside and go, we're going to get into mobile. Okay? And I go, great. Okay, I want you to go run the mobile side of things. I told them no, okay, because I was still too busy doing some of the Wi-Fi stuff. Okay, and they were like, no, you're going to come and do the mobile piece. I said, okay, fine, about 6 months later. And I jumped in. Once again, I had to hire a bunch of people. But by this point in my career, when I started a new project, I had a whole lot of people that would come with me because we had such a good history of doing a bunch of different projects. So it wasn't hard for me to recruit within Comcast. And it wasn't hard for Comcast to give me money to get some of these things done because we had a pretty good track record of getting things done. So the mobile piece, we started about 6 years ago. And once again, we had to start from scratch. They took us and stuck us in another area, which was the best thing for me because I was able to run my own show. Right? And I always like to run my own show. Many of my friends will say, yeah, he just wants to do his own thing. Right? But it works, right? They stick us in a corner. We're able to get the funding. We still had to prove to everybody that why we were doing this, but the dollars was the easy part. The hard part was getting everybody to get the work done from zero. Okay, but we were able to accomplish it. And one of the reasons why I said some things about Wi-Fi because Wi-Fi plays an integral part into what we ended up doing with mobile. So the 5G that we're doing now, a lot of it is because of some of the Wi-Fi work that helped us what we call offloading. So every one of these steps that was made when I started in 1995 led up to where we are today with mobile, because it's always been broadband. From the time we launched the wired service inside the house to now what we're doing mobile, we're still basically pushing the internet. Okay? And I go back again to RIT because I remember when we went to Unix and C, RIT was playing with this thing called the internet. Okay? And it was easy for me to adapt because back in 1981 and 82 and 83 and 84, okay, I was already doing this stuff. So the reality is, for the years that I've been at Comcast, 27, it was always coming back to RIT. Okay, the lessons I learned here, the things that we did here, okay, gave me once again the foundation to be able to do all of these things. The technology didn't change; it just got faster. But I also had a front row seat to some of the big changes that went along with this opportunity that I got from 1995. The internet changed, the world changed. All right. One of the big things that you would see up here, for those who remember, is this thing called Blockbuster. All right. We used to walk into a place, get a thing called a VHS tape, okay, that one day went to a DVD, and they disappeared. Okay, that's the beauty of what broadband did. Okay, it enabled us to do these things from our home, enabled us to do these things from our pockets. All right, and it changed the world. All right, the Microsoft and Apple, they're still here, but it's really not Apple leading the things with Microsoft. All right, I remember working with Nokia, Sony Ericsson, okay, to be able to do some of these things. And Apple came in and made things better when they were attempting at the time to have an MP3 player that was a phone. Right? Most people forgot that that's what the original concept was. Now it's this camera that you have Instagram and all the things that you're taking a picture of and you're pushing. But the beauty of what we have done over these last 27 years and what I still see that's coming with some of the AR, VR, and some of the things that Erin are going to talk to you about is we now have this flexibility on top of broadband that content can be pushed and content can be received from anywhere, right? And that's the power of some of the things that has happened over the 27 years. So what's coming for for the next 27 years is probably unimaginable. All right, but RIT is playing with it. Okay, I can tell you now that some graduate that's here for the RIT is going to be standing up here 27 years ago talking about the things in the foundation that they learned here that enabled them to be able to create and produce things. So my career, I was lucky. All right, I was lucky to be able in the right place at the right time. I was also lucky to be around a bunch of people that helped me and nurtured me and moved me to the next level. But if it wasn't for someone introducing me to technology back in the 70s, I wouldn't be here. Okay, I found a passion. Right? I found the ability to take technology and help drive it. I found the ability to work with teams. I found the ability to lead teams. Okay, but that introduction to technology for a poor kid from Brooklyn was really what made me. So that passion I always kept. And I always tried to figure out, how do I make that passion happen for somebody else? So I started teaching on weekends, right? Someone introduced me to coding. I felt I need to introduce others to coding. And maybe there's another Franklyn that will come out of this group, all right? So a few years ago, I met this woman named Betty Lindley, and I was teaching coding every weekend. You know, I took all the C stuff I learned, and I started teaching, you know, C++, Java, you name the language, I was trying to teach it to introduce kids to coding. But around 7 years ago, we started this thing called Dance Logic. And the concept was pretty raw when we started talking about it. But the idea was to be able to get young ladies, who I call unicorns in this field that we're in now, right, to be able to teach and introduce them to coding. Because we don't have enough. Right? We don't have enough women, we don't have enough people of color. So if we start young, we will be able to get some of them to be able to become technologists and show them that there's this big opportunity, right? And open up the doors to places and areas that they never saw and they probably never even thought about being at. Right? So Dance Logic became the thing for me and the passion for me and a few folks to be able to introduce technology to young ladies. But we still introduce technology to young men, but it's working. We now have a group of young ladies that are moved from beginners to advanced. Okay. Now, we might get 15 and we get 3 or 4 that goes to the next level, but it's okay, right? Because that 3 and 4 stuck around, and we have 6, okay, right? And progressively now, we have a group that has learned very, different things. And now they're starting to teach the intro classes, and that's why I'm here today, because I have people that can teach now versus me having to be able to do both classes. But the concept works, and the passion works. And the beauty of what now I'm seeing at RIT is now there's different groups at RIT that's pushing the same passion. Women in computing I met yesterday, I was like, great. This is the thing that, RIT now is driving, and it's working. So, because even when you make this first step that I'm trying to make of teaching, basically from 13-year-olds to 17-year-olds how to get to coding, when they come to a place like RIT, they still need that nurturing, they still need that hug, they still need that direction. Because even when they pass this stage at RIT and they join that big corporation, they're going to find out they're still unicorns, okay? And they still need that hug. There's resource groups, even at my company, where it's a big, giant company, we still have to have resource groups to make sure we're moving them forward to the next level. We're moving you from an intro person here, right, to some point become a CTO and SVP at some point in their life, because it's doable, right? So once again, I am the boring technologist. I want to introduce you to what's going on, but you're about to see some magic from Erin next that makes you see that there's unicorns in all of us. All right. But thank you very much, and we'll see you then.
All right, next up, Erin Sarofsky. Erin is award-winning creative visionary who creates artful storytelling projects for brands and entertainment. In 2009, she launched the design and production services company Sarofsky in Chicago. Sarofsky is well known for creating innovative title and credit sequences for movies and television. You've seen him. Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, The Suicide Squad, Doctor Strange, Animal Kingdom, Shameless, Community, and Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, among others. She was featured in a CBS Sunday Morning report about creative title sequences. Erin, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Good. Hi. Well, hello. That's going to be a lot to follow up. I can't imagine we're doing okay on time, so I'm going to blow through a little bit. And I'm excited for questions at the end. Very simple, Helvetica. I'm Erin Sarofsky, and I'm very excited to be here. I own a creative production studio in Chicago, but of course I am an alumni of the School of Art and Design here at RIT. And just to place it in context, the one-hit wonder, though we didn't know it at the time on the radio, was Chumbawamba. I get knocked down, but I get up again. So it's also before cell phones, well, before cell phones every day. Just to place you in the idea of like what technology looked like when we were getting started. Like the internet was a thing, we were getting emails, but it wasn't in our pocket. So it was something that you went and checked. It wasn't something that checked on you every 2 seconds. So here we go, I'm gonna dig in. Okay, my work embodies technology, art, and design. It's just a really interesting thing that the university here has focused on these as pillars. And I just think that that is an absolute wonderful thing. You know, design, people think about design as graphic design, but I think about design as problem solving. A client comes to me, they say, oh, we have this thing we want to advertise, or a show we want to talk about with a main title sequence, synopsize, and they create a design problem for me that I have to solve conceptually. Like, what are we gonna make? Art is, how beautiful is it gonna be? What's gonna make somebody want to engage with it and be all about it, and have it in their home, or watch it on TV, or show it off on Twitter, or whatever social bit that is. And then technology is how it comes together. And in my world, if the technology is transparent, that's when it's best, because I want people looking at it thinking like, holy shit, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. You know, I don't want them thinking like, oh, like that camera move was wonky, or how did they render that? Like that I want to be transparent, but it is certainly the thing that makes everything happen. Technology on the filming side, technology on the CG side, even into the font creation technology. So it is those pillars and how they come together that is my everyday life. And so now this is like when I show off, you know. We worked on the title sequence with James Gunn for Peacemaker. He's a genius, in case he's watching. You know, we also did the Suicide Squad with him. All the titling and typography, title sequences, anytime you see design integrated, like we had something to do with that, including the opening Warner Brother logo sequence. Our relationship with him started on Guardians of the Galaxy 1, or just Guardians of the Galaxy, before we knew there would be a 2. And then, of course, you know, Baby Groot here into Guardians of the Galaxy 2. He's off filming 3 now, so, and their holiday special, so that will be interesting to see how that evolves, right? Also with Marvel, we've done a bunch of work with them. This is a still from Ant-Man, a beautiful, entirely CG piece that is an immersive main on end. I'm just showing a still from it because these projects are 2 minutes plus long, and we just don't have time for that, but I bet all of you have seen it at some point. And like, it's so great that they do these after credit scenes, so even if you don't want to sit through the main titles, you have to. I do want to share my latest piece for We Crashed. Now, this is an interesting thing. I'm definitely focusing, of course, on main titles because that's what everybody's going to recognize. But if you've seen a Discover commercial for Discover Card, like we've done that. If you've looked at a how-to video for Chevy, the animated ones, we've done those. Like, our work is like rippled throughout all of your devices all the time. If you've seen a Dupixent commercial, have nasal polyps or eczema or asthma, and you see those dashes, like, we've done those too. That is our jam. But this is the cool, sexy stuff that I know, like, you know, blows up the skirts. So I was like, should we be saying that? Well, I can say anything. I'm a girl. I'm a woman. Okay, so here for We Crash, I really wanted to show this one because it really speaks to the 3 pillars, and it also very much speaks to what I learned here at RIT. I was one of those kids that just took classes in all the disciplines as electives. It was like 21 credits. My parents are like, what are you doing with these bills? Like, why are you taking so many classes? But you know, I was taking classes in the crafts department. I like even took basket weaving. It's like it sounds like a joke, but it was like one of the most beautiful classes, and it made me fall in love with fiber arts and made me just respect process in a way. Like, even then you could do Command Z, right? Like, even back in the day there was Command Z and Quark Express. So like the idea of making something with your hands and not having that, and embracing sometimes learning from the serendipitous mistakes that you would make, or that was a big part of the process. Same thing with drawing and the foundations, color theory, all of that stuff. Yeah, that was just like a big part of, also photography classes, getting and becoming, of course, very close friends with photographers and really understanding not just the love of photography, but how to speak like them, like understanding the terminology and how a camera worked and all of that stuff. And this piece is interesting because it's super high concept about the show We Crash. It's about the story of Adam and Rebecca Newman, the story of WeWork and how it came to be, and it very much focuses on these characters, especially Adam. And so we decided to portray, you see the unicorn horn here, we decided to portray him as a unicorn. And the only thing I want to say before you see it is that the shots with the actual unicorn were filmed. And it is a prosthetic horn. We were able to make that work. We found like the one white horse that was chill enough to be in a building full of glass, which, as you can imagine, casting was probably challenging. And to pull off a shoot like that, and then all of the falling horn shots are all CG. And then there were creative decisions to make it all work together. So I'll play that.
I'm a troubled man, changed by the things I do. True, but it's funny how they all remember you. It all could be different. Try to do something new. Give it everything. Oh, to be a happy man. Buy yourself a dream. How's it looking? Buy yourself a car and a house to live in. Get yourself a girl, someone different. Buy yourself a dream. No, I won't entertain or twist me. I just got told that I gotta move
Thank you. Yeah, that's like my new favorite piece. I just loved picking out all that wallpaper. If you follow me on Instagram, you know. Yeah, I have a little bit of a thing going on with that right now. But yeah, it was a really beautiful process to be able to do something in camera and CG. It was really much this, typically we try to keep it in one spot, like either you're doing live action or we're doing all CG, and this was like a really beautiful case where we got to do both, and even just conversations about the horn. So that was sculpted and painted in real life, but then in the box, when we were looking at it closely and working on the texturing and lighting and rendering, we were really discussing, like, what should a horn look like? Is it like bone? Is it like a nail? And ultimately, we really landed on reference that we found from a seashell. We felt like that really looked the best. But it's really interesting, the conversations that you have on a project like that. So next up, yeah, so here's just another project. It was a kind of a passion piece. I'm just showing some stills from it, some little moving clips for a main title conference opener. You do these kind of passion projects, and this was like all about the end of the world, and it aired right as the world was ending. So I feel like perhaps a little responsible, because it was all about, you know, robots taking over and technology becoming the way to a point where like humanity is irrelevant. But in the end, this flower blooms. But again, it's a really long title sequence, and I don't want to take up all your days. But this was like an homage to like Metropolis, and just, you know, the idea of doing something mostly black and white when you are in the computer and color is free, you know? So it's just kind of a fascinating thing when you start making art decisions and using technology to create them. And this piece is really all about that in general. So really beautiful piece. I have to show this because everybody knows it. Community. This is where it all started for me, Community. It's also reminds me, and I like to talk about this piece because it led to the relationship with Marvel, because it was really my first entertainment job with my own studio. And that's where I met the Russo brothers. And that's where like we created this connection that, you know, you kind of just know what they're going to want, and they respect what you like and want, and there's this amazing relationship, and then they kind of keep you with them throughout all of their projects. And so it was really a funny moment, because I saw in Variety, I get this Variety alert. We were working on a sitcom called Animal Practice with them, and it was a good show. It didn't make it, but it was a good show. Anyway, I see in Variety that they're going to be the next, you know, directors of Captain America, the Winter Soldier. And I just immediately emailed them, and I literally wrote, "I am so happy for you, but I am more happy for me. Please do not forget about your girl when it's time for a title sequence." And they were like, "Of course." And Marvel is different than doing a sitcom on NBC. The infrastructure needed to just work in the VFX pipeline, to work with those security parameters, are like crazy different than you could possibly ever imagine. Well, I know somebody that can imagine. Like the network, the switches, all of that stuff. Like it's all, and you're working on an island, so you aren't exposed by any internet. So, you know, those workstations, we call it island mode, are just like connected to its server, the server's connected to them. Any reference that you need that they send you has to be basically transitioned off of their server onto our server, but like not be on the internet. Can you imagine? So it's a very fascinating process that a small boutique studio in Chicago had to like immediately figure out, like right as we like won the job. So it was pretty interesting. Also, stereoscopic. Yeah, 3D. That's a thing, because not only are you rendering like a flat 2D movie, you're also rendering like a left eye and a right eye. So you've tripled your rendering for a show, which is astronomical, because you're at all the Ks. What is it like? Because it's for IMAX, so it's way more than 4K. So a lot of pixels. I have Captain America Winter Soldier here to show you. So I'm going to let this play out, even though it is almost 2 minutes long. Great week. Yeah. Yeah, that's like a biggie, you know, that really marked a big transition in my career and life for the studio. It certainly put us like on a whole different echelon, and that's like what like made way to the CBS Sunday morning bit, the whole deal. So it's really a beautiful piece. And like we're still going strong with the Russos. You should look for The Gray Man. That'll be out this summer on Netflix. Like, oh, I'm like promoting something. That's fun. Yeah. But it's really cool, and our main on end is really cool, and our title card up front is really cool. So it's gonna be. I hope I didn't spoil anything. I'm not usually supposed to talk about stuff. Okay. Anyway, look for that. We also did Doctor Strange. This one was an amazing undertaking, especially in 3D, stereo. But for me, there's no art without technology. This is another still from that piece. Technology is the underpinning of it all. To be able to create all of this stuff, you got the hardware, you got the software, you got the maintenance of the hardware and the software and the building of the infrastructure, and none of that can happen. None of this art can happen without that. And I always say the best tech is invisible. Like we talked about that a little bit before, but like if I see how something is done, if I'm holding a phone and it's not working, like that's not the best tech. You know, it's making me frustrated. So like I don't want to see it, but that's what makes it so good, you know. And then the future of technology, like where do you even begin there? But, you know, I tried to think about it in the context of like my education and again, those pillars and the experiences and all the different departments. But I feel like there's, to a certain extent, been like this tradification of what was like very specialized fields that you would come here for. Like you can go to YouTube and get like an answer for everything. We call it YouTube University. And even now in like specialties, you can go to get online courses. But that doesn't necessarily make you a critical thinker about all the things around it, right? So there is still like a really important place to be able to, yes, maybe go and become an expert at something, but then also experience all these different things. You learn how to talk to photographers. You experience taking some photography courses. You experience some hands-on courses. You take some coding classes, and you start learning how all of this stuff comes together. It's like a very, very important thing, and I think that's where innovation happens. Because again, if design is solving a problem, you have to be able to identify what that problem is. And a lot of times those problems come from workflow issues or just inefficiencies. So that's where a lot of problem solving in the future of technology comes from, at least for me. I was also thinking about what we could do to better prepare students for post-grad life, because technology and design goes hand in hand. And I think there are people that lean more towards design and more towards technology, but it has to be a constant conversation in all of your classes. So like not just what does it look like, but how is it going to work? Like what does it mean to just, you can't just present an interface and not have a conversation about how you're going to bring that to life, or an animation or something like that. And then you can't just do a type animation and not have give any thought to the font or the typeface or the kerning and the nuance and the color of it. So, and those are very, very rudimentary examples, but I just think like as part of critique should be a natural part of the process. And critique is an unfortunate word because it sounds like it's being critical, but it's really just critical thinking about your work in the context of the ecosystem around it. So I think that's really important. I think also exposing students to specialties earlier on in their career, really seeing like, yeah, I like design, but there's motion design and there's new media design, and in each of one of those things, there's also these subtrees. So really kind of creating that early excitement and passion by exposing them to like very early on different little branches so that they can specialize but still also get this other range of experience that will influence it. So it'll go deeper but still give them that full range. Again, repeating myself. Making the interpreter's job harder. And then lastly, this is a big one, but treating writing and presenting as a skill early on, getting people writing, talking about their ideas. So much of my feedback back and forth and communication now happens in a text message. It happens in an email. Even though there's Zoom and all this other stuff, so much happens in a treatment. Just writing a simple sentence could be why somebody buys your thing. I mean, like, I'm a visual person, and when I see a visual, like, I get it, I understand, but a lot of my clients are writers and producers, and they just want to read, like, how is this going to come to life, because they don't necessarily get it. So really developing those skills is going to be really super important, and something that I've worked very hard on in my own life. Okay, so I talked a little bit about this, my RIT experience, design, technology, and tactile, and there is one last project that I want to show, and to explain it is a little bit weird. Apple approached me when their new iMac Pro came out, and they said, we want to advertise this iMac Pro by reaching out to professionals that make kick-ass films on the iMac itself, and then we'll promote the iMac by showing off these films and showing that you created this film on it. So put a little pitch together, and it was all about having, like, what happens in a journal, in a notebook. You can see I take it with me everywhere. All the doodles, all the things, all the ideas that never had an opportunity to come to life. What happens if you open it up and see them come out? And so, you know, that was real insight that worked for them, because, you know, Apple users tend to be very tactile. Just how you, like, type on the keyboard, it just feels expensive. Well, it is expensive, but you know what I mean. So I was all about it, and this is the idea I presented. Had, again, all the things. It was high-speed phantom camera footage that we filmed of the book opening, then CG, if there was, like, you know, video LED panels back in the day, we would have done it the other way, but this one was comping it. So building out the CG and comping it all together, and then actually me making the journal, doing all the illustrations, and then taking those illustrations and redoing them flat so that we could project them onto models and build it out. So this has literally, like, it's like a candy store of CG and live action and technology and design and all the things. I'm so proud I got to mess with the Apple logo, and I didn't say anything about it. Okay, so that definitely took more than 10 minutes, but I want to thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Come on up.
Here, go back.
All right, so they definitely took way more than 10 minutes, but it was totally worth it. That was amazing. Really amazing. That just means we're going to be a little tighter,
okay.
But we're going to try to move here, and we're going to try to get to your questions quickly. I'm just going to do a few of my own, and then really it should be up to the audience here. But I want to just start by asking Erin with the A, when you think about what clients want, I'm wondering what is starting to change, because a lot of the times I've heard people, friends of mine who kind of work in your field, who say, it's amazing how many clients will say, give me something that'll go viral. Give me something, you know, that will, you know, sort of be kind of this massively well-known thing that will make a splash. I don't know if you can plan virality, but what are they starting to ask in terms of new platforms? You talked a little bit about where you think we're going with virtual reality and augmented reality. Are clients asking for that? Are you pushing clients there? And where do we think we're going?
Wow, that is a big question. Okay, well, I'll start with three basics. I think clients will always want process to be amazing, regardless of the creative ask, right? And I think that's where a lot of times where technology and management comes in is actually understanding just properly managing a project and wanting, like, at the end of the day, they want the project to go smoothly, regardless of the creative ask. And I think that's, people usually think the creative is the baseline, but actually I think that's the baseline. Because there's a lot of people that can do amazing creative work, but I think that's like the first thing. And I think when you talk about pushing things forward creatively, on top of that, where a lot of the asks are going, I think obviously we still get plenty of traditional asks. I think in some cases we are pushing clients, I think a lot of them, especially who have certain audiences, need to be pushed a little bit out of their comfort zone to reach those audiences in ways they're not considering. And the way we do that typically would be like if it's a broad spectrum campaign and we're doing like 7 or 8 different deliverables, we'll just, we'll pitch adding one on, and then the next time, of course, it comes up and then they want to do it the next time. Or 6 months or a year later, they come back.
Do they fight you? Do they go, why? Why are we doing this?
No one actually. I think people's eyes are pretty open right now to why something could be a thing. I think it's just fighting for where the budget gets allocated. I think the pandemic also didn't help with tightening up certain budgets, certain places, and then loosening other places. So I think people are just starting to get back into this like growth and spending mode, where they're going, okay, hey, you mentioned this thing like 2 years ago or like a year ago. We want to try that now, and it's like it's just really starting to happen. But I think as far as, and I can talk about this all day, but as far as where asks are going, I think there's the yes ands is where the asks are going. There's your TV commercial. There's what is supporting that, not even TV, really I should say online commercial.
Yeah.
TV is actually a lesser buy, but it's what's supporting that. Okay, are we doing a campaign that involves this character, and now we want this character to be in front of everyone on everyone's phone? Do we want this character to be permeating in different interactive ways on top of that? And I think they're starting to ask, how do we cohesively make one campaign use the same assets in a lot of different ways?
Franklyn, on the subject of connectivity and where we're going next, this is a town that we've heard a lot about photonics, but if you're not working in tech, you don't often know really what that means. Does that have a place for making speeds faster, making us more connected? Does it relate to what you're doing?
Yes. Everything has always been about going faster. All right. And we try to find fiber mechanisms of making things go faster to the last mile. In our case, we have both capabilities where fiber is going to the home, fiber is going to some other last mile closer to the home, and it's all about speed. And as you can see by some of the technology and the usage of that speed today, the performance of getting from point A to point B, right, has just dramatically increased. And the photonics helps us make that happen. And that's, pretty much has doubled and tripled and quadrupled over these many years to get us to this point that we can do things like this. And it just looks smooth. All right, so sometimes it plays inside what we call the LAN area because you're moving bits around from the camera to some server, right? And then it plays outside of that to get to your home in some cases, all right? So all of this is in that same area to be able to move things faster and move volumes of data that now has to be able to be moved around as fast as possible. And that's where it's playing in most of the things that you're seeing today, even this conversation we're having.
How different is our connectivity going to be in 5-10 years from now?
It's going to be quadruple what you're doing today, to be honest with you, right? Because everything will be just getting faster. And there's things that's getting improved today that is unbelievable how it's getting moved around. What you're looking at now is what dial-up was, 40 years ago. Okay.
Wow.
And, 40 years from now, it's all wireless. You won't even think about where the last mile is. You just make it happen with the thing that's in your pocket or the thing that might be attached to your glasses in some cases.
Erin, I think we're around the same age, and my son recently told me that I'm at the age where I can no longer be cool. And yet, what you are doing, what we saw in your presentation, is among the coolest things in media, period. It is really interesting, it's beautiful, it's cutting edge, and people are calling you because you are the paragon of cool now. So, congratulations on that.
Thank you. I like this panel. I hope it's being recorded because I'll save it for my daughter for years from now. Yeah.
But when you think about how you stay current with what you're able to do, with what new ideas are coming about, how much are you taking what you learned at RIT some years ago versus kind of studying what RIT students and recent grads are doing right now to kind of stay fresh?
Well, that's interesting. A lot of what I learned in art history still plays out now. Even how I build my studio is very much this is going to sound like a really super narcissistic thing, but like the studio model of like Leonardo da Vinci, he was like the master, and then he has all these apprentices and he trains them all up, and it's a very similar studio model that I have. I just like find these really talented people and we train them, and I have an executive producer that does that on the producer side too. So we're really kind of crafting our own ecosystem. And so much of art history and other mediums really influence our work. And so it is always concept first. What's the big idea? How does that relate to the show or the product that we're working on? And then kind of presenting that in the most artful way. I mean, like, even though you see all this big work, like, we still win only about 30% of our pitches. And I think that's like really the most important thing to maybe communicate today. Like, there's a lot more rejection that we receive than oh my God, yeah. And sometimes you see work out there that you pitched and you're like, our stuff was clearly better. But like, clearly better. But it doesn't matter because it was that person who was buying it that it had to be right for. Like, if you're an architect building a house for somebody and that person has 7 kids and all the pets and all the things, and you want to build them like a 2-bedroom house with like all this open plan, that's just not going to work for them. It's not going to suit their needs. And so there was something about like the approach that didn't strike a chord, or maybe they just had a relationship with somebody that was like just a little bit tight, like how we have with the Russos or James. Like, it's very, once you build those relationships, they're really important because there becomes a shorthand, and that's, to have a client like relationship like that is really special.
Yeah, I love that idea, and I love what Erin talked about, real partners. I mean, not just, that's a powerful concept that goes well beyond just tech. I mean, that's still human relationships. I want to turn it over to questions from anyone who has them in the audience. Bob, do we have, I'm going to follow where the mics go.
We have 2 mics. We have John over there.
So if you've got
myself,
John, Bob. So if you want one, or if you got one to ask, put a hand up and they'll find you. You got one over there, John? Okay. Yep.
Hello. My name is Sungmin Shin. I'm a faculty member here with Performing Arts. I have a very quick shameless plug before my question. I do have a question. If you want to see an amazing concert, come on down to Ingle Auditorium at 3 p.m. Tiger A-Team. Amazing students will be playing music, everything from Bill Withers to Snarky Puppy. Anyways, I do have a question. I'm a musician and I love technology. And I use a lot of technology in my work professionally and also in my teaching. But I'm sure with everyone here, there are times you fight with technology and sometimes you just want to go live in a cabin in the mountains and you'd be a lot happier, And I'm just wondering if in the future, specifically with VR, if the technology is going to be so good that there's going to be a blurred line between actual reality and virtual reality. And if that's possible, how soon do you think that will happen? And what are the implications?
Huge question. Huge. So no pressure.
I can answer that question, and also that concert sounds great. There's 2 parts of that question I think that's important to address. I think virtual reality, I'm not worried about that line blurring. And this goes back to the sci-fi book Snow Crash, right? And it's where we get the term metaverse right now. Everyone is the buzzword of metaverse, right? That is a VR scenario. That is, they plug in, right, and then they're immersed in a different world. I think the nature of having to put something on to immerse yourself in another world makes it so that the line doesn't get blurred. There's a clear distinction of when you turn it on and when you turn it off. I think the part that is being less talked about right now in terms of metaverse is actually AR. And I think it's because right now...
Augmented reality,
yep. Yeah. And I think it's because right now you use it through your phone. But the second it's on your glasses, the technology will just keep getting better. There's every type of projection mapping technology out there right now, different sensor technology to make the projections look a lot more real in front of you. Apple is releasing their first glasses as soon as next year. And when Apple does something, they're not going to kid around. And I think that's where the line is going to start to get blurred because you will not be able to unplug. It's like Blade Runner style, right? Like there's a phrase where all real estate in our life will be sold twice, one physically, one digitally, and I think that's the part where the line is going to get blurred, and that people are going to really struggle, I think, with turning it off. And the only, I think, saving grace in that for maybe 10 years is that it'll be through glasses until it's something that is, right on your skin. Or an implant, right? So I think the blurred line that's like terrifying, and hopefully we make money off of it, is that it's going to be augmented reality. I think versus virtual reality, the blurred line. I think virtual reality will actually only become a better escape. I think escapism through virtual reality will only grow because it will get more realistic. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
To kind of follow that is the technology, and Erin said it correctly earlier, is that it needs to be invisible. All right, and if it's visible, there's a problem with the technology. So, I've been lucky to see some of the things that's coming, and AR and VR is definitely in its infancy right now to, what you're seeing. What you're going to see coming is the ability for all of us in here not to even be here, okay, to really be blunt about what is coming. The technology is almost here for that. You're going to be immersed. And you're going to be immersed more because the performance, the graphics, all those things are
Do
just
you want that,
drastically
Franklyn?
changing.
Do you want that?
I learned something over the last 2 years called COVID, that we've learned how to live with being remote, that I don't have to get on a plane. Erin and I were laughing about this earlier. We don't have to be on a plane anymore to go from point A to point B, and we're still producing, even producing more. I get out of bed, I roll into the office, okay? The AR that you're about to see is that I truly did roll into the office. And I'm sitting at the dining room table, but it's actually looking like my office desk. Yeah. All right, so the Meta things that you're hearing from that new name, Meta company, is pushing that technology with their own glasses that you're gonna see more of. That, once again, we won't really be here, but we are here. And that's what you're going to be playing with in the coming years.
This is where I still am uncool. I still like to be here. But I totally understand. It's a huge question. And frankly, I'm going to drag these folks onto connections on WXXI to talk about this, because I think people are not, if you don't go to RIT and you're not in this ecosystem, I think this is an overwhelming concept for a lot of people. And I think that we're going to have to take some time to really understand what it means. More here. Anybody else here? Let's try to squeeze. Keep going.
Hello, I'm Maggie. I have a question specifically for Erin, though anyone can answer it, and Erin with an E. So in my second year, I had a professor, Patty LaChance, and she just talked you up like so much. She's like, she does all of this Marvel stuff. So anytime there's a Marvel movie, I'm like, I bet Erin did this. So I just want to know, you've been like a celebrity in my mind since my second year, and I'm graduating in 2 weeks. So
Congratulations.
My question is, as I've been applying for jobs and everything, how do you personally identify critical thinkers and true creatives when you're seeking new talent?
That's a really interesting question. It's really hard out of the gate to know. And so I think somebody's first job, you're seeing, do they have like the seeds of talent to be able to work with them? Also, like communication, like what was their email like? How did the Zoom call go? Did they show up to the Zoom call? Like, just things like that are real big tells, you know what I mean? So that is part of it. I think the critical thinking, there has to be a leap of faith, because we don't really see that until like year 3, like, are they gonna be like a rock star designer, or are they going, which is, first of all, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I know animators that don't aspire to manage other animators, they just want to animate, and you can make an amazing living doing that. I think there's been so much placed on this emphasis of evolving into a manager role and into like up. You can still make more and more and more doing the thing that you love doing, which is important to say, because like so much of that like elevation in one's career is what I think defines them to their family. But that's really not the case. If you really love doing something, don't move yourself out into managing other people doing it and just missing doing it. Just ask for more money because you're a senior. You know what I mean? Like, that's like a really important thing. But like that critical thinking to know whether somebody is going to be capable of like leading a team or getting deeper on concept and starting to piece the things together. We don't really know that until we start seeing it like in situ and just kind of putting that person into situations that are a little out of their comfort zone and kind of watching what happens and mentoring them through that. So at first it's like, oh, this is cool. This is great work. Oh, they're a good person to talk to. I feel better about my life after I talk to them, like I don't think kids these days, I don't have that active thought. So it's like I would say it's just reaching out, presenting your work, and following up. A lot of times, like you'll send emails to like a general inbox, like hello@sarofsky.com. But like if I'm an alumni, find my email, message me on LinkedIn. If you're not hearing back from me, see who worked on some of the projects that you liked. Reach out to them and say, hey, I saw this project. Would you mind reviewing my portfolio? I'm thinking about, applying to your company. There's so many ways about navigating it, and all of the information is there. Like I remember having to like find actual magazines like Communication Arts and looking people up and like literally showing up at people's offices unannounced, like going to New York and being like, hello, I'm here. Who can I talk to? Who's a creative director here? And now like you just have all of that information at your fingertips. So really use it and go from there. That's what I hope I answered your question. Yeah.
We're going to go as long as Bob and John allow it.
Okay.
What do you think, Bob, John?
There's one right there.
Yeah,
John,
one here? Yeah.
John, straight back.
There's time.
A little bit more, because we do have a full festival out there, too.
Hello, my name is Siobhan Gannon. I am a graduating 3D animation student. And my question is, do you see a potential future combination of AR, VR, XR with films and potentially like within credits? Like, could that be part of the experience?
Yeah, I mean, like build it and they will come. It was interesting it wasn't Community, but it was like really early, and like 4K wasn't a thing yet, and we were working on a Sony show and they asked for it to be delivered in 4K, and we were like, why? Like you're not even, like the network that it was going on wasn't even a 4K network. Like nothing was 4K about this show. Like why are you making it in 4K? And then I went and I was like looking for TVs, and I was looking at a Sony 4K TV. And I was like, oh. Oh. Like the light bulb at ABT over my head like came off. Like so like they build the technology and then it's a cycle. And so as things evolve, then we evolve with it. As color pipelines evolve, we evolve with it. It's all there. So I think if they're going to build that technology, yes, like we're going to be making things for it. I think it's really that simple,
I have two other thoughts on that too,
Yeah.
which is because you're combining a lot of things in your question that could play with each other.
Yeah.
I think we've already seen for some shows that get like a cult following, that people on their phone will be interacting with apps while they're watching the show.
Yeah.
And it's like interactive content with their friends while they're doing that. I think that inevitably will move to an AR setting in some way, and I think they've already piloted that on a couple networks, more for like more broadcast events. But I think for like TV shows, things like that, I think that will start to be a thing. I also think, and this is the more controversial thought process here, but just with what I've seen already and how fast Unreal Engine is developed for virtual production, I have a very distinct opinion on, especially with the third floor just releasing some animation tools as well on Unreal, that real-time rendering is going to get better. And I think you were speaking of like the pains of rendering stereoscopic and all this stuff. I think people are looking for render solutions right now. So I would be amazed.
It's expensive, and the energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes your turnaround longer, right?
Yeah.
Like it takes long to do, so the client can't ask for a shorter schedule unless they want to pay a crazy amount of money.
Which they do.
Which they do. But I think you're going to start seeing that real-time rendered 3D animation is going to become 5-10 years. I think studios as big as Pixar are going to be working off of real-time rendered 3D, which means you'll be in the same engine that can do video gaming, which means you'll be in the same engine that can do virtual production, and the same engine that can be kicking out certain other types of immersive experiences. That's my particular opinion, but.
But what do you think 3D companies are going to do, like Maxon and Maya and like Autodesk?
I actually have thought about this like way too much, like a obsessive amount. But the problem is that right now real-time rendering engines just aren't there yet. But I think that they're actually innovating faster than you have only a few companies in the world at Pixar's level that's in studio level that is innovating on the 3D software side of things to keep pushing it. And I think right now what they're really trying to do is make complex tools simpler. So they're really just making the user interface better and making tools that used to take forever to program easier. But I think on the gaming side, because gaming is such a bigger industry than film, I think that they're actually innovating faster. And I see a convergence happening at some point where someone just goes, wait a minute, I can do all these same things on a real-time rendered game engine. I just have to think a little bit differently. And then I think studios are going to start to switch over. Like I think gaming studios are going to start making films because games are already becoming so cinematic. I think they're creating mini films for their games. I think it's inevitable that they're going to start divisions or start hiring out to do short films and then feature films. And then
that makes sense.
One more over here, John.
Hi, my name's Andrew, gentleman in the middle, not named Aaron. I'm his son. Question. So I graduated at RIT about 4 or 5 years ago, and this building didn't even exist yet. And this was something that I would have loved to play in, and even the shed that's coming soon. So what's something that you look back at your time at RIT saying, wow, I wish I would have, done more work in that class or would have taken that class, or something that, you look back and if that was here, I would have played around with it.
That's fun. All three of you can. Let's just go across the stage with Erin with an A first. That's great. Great.
Well, I feel like we're talking a lot.
You all have to answer this one.
Well, it's funny because I was a film student and then this got built afterwards. So this was my I wish this was here. I guess probably that's actually my answer. I wish Magic Spell was here when I was a student. I would say what it's developing is incredible for both film and gaming. So. I would say probably just a continuation of that effort and probably a future expansion of it because it's, already growing so heavily.
Yeah. So look, I graduated in '85, and none of this existed. Okay. Right. We used to roam the halls of the art studios over there just to see what was going on, but we would have been all over this place. The security building that I saw yesterday was so impressive. And if you're in my technology, everything is security. They're doing things over there. They got little groups, and we would have just been immersed in all of that, trying to figure out what's going on. So we would have been everywhere. Between this building, trying to figure out what's going on, how can we figure out how to get some of the Disney or the Magic Kingdom stuff going, because we would have thought it was like a game place. Okay, and between what's going on in security, we just would have been engrossed in everything around here.
Well, I often fantasize about coming back and just doing the craft stuff. That sounds like an amazing retirement, actually. Just getting immersed in glass blowing and and pottery things. I think to the point of we're so in the box now. Everything is so this far from our face, and it's all about how the keyboard feels or the mouse feels. I miss tactile. I miss touching things, I feel blessed that I'm still a maker. I make beautiful, artful things, but I miss making with my hands. So.
We could probably do this all day, but I am grateful for their time, and I hope the audience has enjoyed the perspective as well of this wonderful panel. And I think, is the president's going to come up? So the president of RIT is going to say a few words to close us out here.
Well, thanks again to both Erins and to Franklyn and to Evan We can see that RIT alumni are leading the way in a variety of fields across the globe. This is amazing work that we saw and these contributions in these different fields. Evan, thanks for moderating, and also again to WXXI and for City Magazine helping sponsor today's event. We hope that everyone here, both in person and virtually, left inspired. We urge you to explore what is outside these walls, the rest of the Imagine Festival for the remainder of the day. I promise that you will experience the unexpected and a lot of extraordinary work that the RIT community has been engaged in and that points the way to the future. So enjoy the rest of the day, and thanks very much for joining us.